Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. For some of you, good afternoon, good morning. We'll get started in just 1 second. We've got some folks that are still joining. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Marketing Matters, a forum where we seek to elevate marketing for fresh food and floral companies. So, as you'll notice, I am not Danelle. I am actually Megan Zweig, Vice President at DMA Solutions, and we're so glad that you're here with us today and taking the time from your busy schedule just to discover and sort through challenges that you're likely facing with your website, and more specifically, how to better communicate your brand story. Maybe you're here because you're curious about what a brand story is. And the great news is we're going to help get deep into that topic today and leave you with some learnings and actionable suggestions for how to approach next steps for your brand. I'm so happy to be with you here today, and I'm always happy to introduce my colleague and marketing maven, Mackenzie Wortham. She's an account director here at DMA, and she and I are going to be sharing and delivering this information to you today. We'll be ready to answer your questions, hear your thoughts, and really help you think through your specific circumstances so that you leave today's webinar feeling good about the time that you've spent with us today. I'm also pleased to welcome our creative director, Cliff Thomas. He's on standby and will be ready to answer questions as well that may surface at the end of our discussion. So if you want to get technical, Cliff's your guy. I think it's helpful to note too that here at DMA, in both Mackenzie and Cliff's roles, a major responsibility that they both share is helping brands bring world-class websites to life from ideation to execution. And in that process, they guide our clients to cultivate stories that resonate with desired audiences, both verbally and visually. So there's a finesse to this and a method and practice and art really of what they do. And so Mackenzie is really going to guide us through that today. So before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping reminders. We'll share this deck with you after the recording, so don't hurt yourself writing a lot of notes. We'll have all the information ready for you to download. And second, of course, we encourage your questions. Feel free to add them to the chat or add them to the Q&A, and we'll address them at the end. Okay, I'm gonna turn off my video. 1 second. Okay, so just a couple of reminders too. One more reminder, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, but we have 2 upcoming webinars that we have in the works right now that we think that you're really gonna find valuable. The first is coming up on April 8th, and we'll be discussing how to collaborate with influencers for maximum brand impact. So whether you're knee deep in influencer activity or you don't know where to start, it's probably one or the other, this webinar is going to help you out. And then later in April, which will be here before we know it, really, I can't believe it's already mid-March, our DMA social team will be available actually to help present their next level tips for giving your current social media performance a boost. So yay for that. Times are a changing these days, and on social media, I mean, people, y'all, it's time that we get a pulse, and things changed on the daily, and our team keeps a pulse on that. So we want to keep you up to date on all those things that they've got cooking to help you maximize yours. So don't forget to register. And if you're anything like me and our team here at DMA, we like to keep a regular pulse on hot marketing topics and tactics. Definitely visit the core, which is our blog, where we literally give away what we're learning, what we're doing, and what we know every single week. We post 3 times a week. So that's 3 times the learning potential for you and your team. So share away, read away, enjoy. All right, enough of the reminders. Let's get started. Before Mackenzie starts, I wanted to share this quote about telling the right story. It's important to me to share it with you because of its relevance really to our topic today. In this Quote, Donald points out that truly good brand messaging should filter out all the things that our customers just quite frankly don't care about. This is easier said than done, of course, when you own and operate a complex business like yours. Today, Mackenzie will walk you through DMA's process when applying this line of strategic thinking for brands. And with that, Mackenzie, take it away.
All right, thank you, Megan. So storytelling really is an investment in your brand success, and it takes more than just telling your company's story to do this well. Successful storytelling isn't just the words or the message, but that's where we're going to start today, is talking about the actual messaging piece. And then we'll follow up with the visual side to storytelling, how you bring your story to life on your website, followed by how to measure if your story is resonating with people or not. So let's jump into the messaging. All right, what makes a great brand story? There are 5 key elements of a great brand story that we want to underscore today. First things first, knowing your audience. So who are you trying to communicate with? For our grower shippers that are on the line, we know that we have 2 primary audiences, typically shoppers and then our trade partners. When we're building out the story that we want to tell on our website, it's best that you identify which audience you primarily want your website to speak to, because at the end of the day, you're solving different problems for these different audiences. They seek different information from you. So that's not to say that if you choose to focus on shoppers that you cannot have any information about your trade partners on your website. Many of the grower shippers that we work with that are focused on the shopper have chosen to have, their website, their homepage will speak primarily to consumers. And then they'll have like a separate microsite or a landing page available for trade customers that'll offer them the detailed information that they need that would just confuse your shopper. So for example, you wouldn't want to have information about UPCs or something like that intermixed with your consumer facing website copy. That will just confuse a little bit. So let me ask you guys this first poll question here. I'd love to get a take from everyone who's listening in right now. Who is the primary audience for your website? Get a good gauge and see if we've got a lot of people focused on consumers versus focused more on a B2B audience. I think a lot of you are probably going to be focused on both, so that'll be great to see. We'll give it a little bit longer. Looks like we've got about 70% of you voted. All right. There we go. Okay, really interesting to see. A lot of majority of you are actually focused on trade customers that are on this call. That's great. I think that this is going to be really helpful for you, and you'll be really inspired by these examples that we give here. But for a lot of you that are focused on both, it goes both ways. Like I said, there's a way you can interweave your story with both your shoppers and your trade customers. You just want to make sure you do it in separate places, if that makes sense. All right. So that's only one level of knowing your audience. It doesn't just stop at shopper versus trade customer. So let's take it a step further. We want to identify the demographics and preferences of your audience. So if you're targeting shoppers, you're going to want to determine if your goal is to reach, moms or maybe active on the go, younger shoppers, maybe even men. No matter who your audience is, though, you want to get into their heads and get a feel for what their likes, dislikes, and pain points are. So for all of you that are focused on a B2B audience, you want to ask yourself this: what keeps my customers up at night? What frustrates them? What would make their lives easier? Knowing these things means that you are on your way to creating messaging that will resonate with your audience. Next, we want to focus on the value, advantages, and differentiators that you have to offer. Basically, we're going to drill into your value proposition. So for those of you that attended United Fresh Brandstorm last week, if anyone here was there, you may recall the opening session. It was really good, about building an ironclad brand. The speaker asked us to consider our uncommon denominator. So that's the intersection of your audience's desires and your company's strengths, but not your competitor's strengths. So that's the key there. What do you do best that your competitor does not do? This is a great thing to focus on when elevating the value in your your messaging. Next, communicating your purpose. Do you know why your brand exists? This was a huge topic at PMA Fresh Summit last year, if you recall. You know your company's history. I know all of you do. You probably know this backwards and forwards, the history, the core values, and the mission. But in your story and your messaging, are you sharing what motivates your big why with your audience? You need to know why you do what you do and then clearly communicate that. Authenticity is key here. And then, of course, our products and our services solve a problem. All of our businesses exist for a reason, and that is to solve a problem for someone. Think back to those values, advantages, and differentiators. They are uniquely positioning you to ease the pain points of your audience. So are you saving your audience time, or are you saving your audience money? Are you helping them do something better or faster? What are you doing that no one else is? So if you're talking about the shopper, it might be that you're offering convenience products. You're helping them prep meals faster. That's solving a problem. Maybe you have an unbeatable flavor, or you have a unique variety that you can't get anywhere else. Or maybe for those of you who are focused on trade messaging, you're offering a deeper level of customer service and customization compared to one of your competitors. All of those things allude to the problems that you can solve for your audience. And then, of course, a great story calls your audience to action. So you don't want them to hear your story and think, oh, that's neat, and then leave your website, do you? You want to see them act, whether that's picking up the phone and calling you to place an order, or maybe it's requesting product samples. Or for the shopper, you want them to subscribe to your blog or search for your product on a product locator or click to view your recipes. No matter what, you want to top off your messaging with multiple opportunities for your audience to act, which is one way that you will measure success. But more on that later. First, let's talk about the reality of all of this, and bear with me because this one might be tough to hear. Your story isn't about you. That's right. This was really hard the first time we heard this. But if you're familiar with Donald Miller, the quote we gave earlier in this presentation is from him as well. He wrote Building a Story Brand. He says it best here: the customer is the hero, not your brand. So when we position our customer as the hero and ourselves as the guide, we will be recognized as a trusted resource to help them overcome their challenges. He underscores it with, it's just good business. So in our experience, this was a huge reality check for us too. It's an especially hard pill to swallow for a lot of fresh produce brands too, because we like to tell our story and frame it in a way where it's about, you know, what we're doing, or you know, our company history, thinking of that as our story. But really, that's not quite the story that we're talking about here, and that's not the story that will resonate with your audience the most. So when we first started studying storytelling on a deeper level, we learned that we were making mistakes with our own marketing and storytelling on our website, because our website was absolutely focused on ourselves, and it wasn't focused on all of you that are on this call right now. You are our audience. So since we've been studying this information about storytelling and messaging, we've begun working on shaping our story to where each of you serves as the hero, and we are simply here to be a guide. And we really have seen a difference in how all of you are engaging with us online, seriously. So we'll give you some examples to help you get a better understanding of what we mean by making your customer the hero. But at a high level, this is just a basic human truth that can be applied to your brand. All right, so before going into all the benefits that your company provides, think about establishing a connection with your audience and make them be more receptive to hearing the things you have to say. So before we go down this next path, I'm going to show you some examples of how you can reframe your messaging and make it about your audience. But I want to ask you something else. So Audrey, if you can launch that next poll, I'd like to get a gauge of how you feel based on this reality check. What is your current brand story focused on? So a lot of us, I know a lot of fresh produce companies that we work with will focus a lot on the founder's journey, and then secondary, they'll focus a lot on the features. But we want to focus a little bit more on the benefits, and I'll talk more about that. But I'd love to get a pulse from you guys on where your website is mostly focused at the moment. Okay, give it a little bit more time. Let some more votes come in. Couple more. I see still some more voting. All right, awesome, great. Okay, so this is a good mix here. A lot of you are focused on all of the above, so I think this will be a really helpful presentation for you to learn more about where maybe you can focus going forward or how you can make some tweaks to your current messaging. And then I see that a few of you maybe focused a little bit on the features, so I'll talk about how you can change that next. And some of you may not even have a clear story or might be focused completely on the owner and founder's journey, which for you, this is going to be a really interesting overall message that we give with this presentation that's going to give you a lot to think about that you might make you want to do some things differently. So I'm excited to see what you guys think once we get to the Q&A session. All right. I think we're good there. All right. So benefits versus features. The fastest way to start thinking in terms of your audience and not you is to focus on benefits and not features. On the left, you have a very common example of messaging that leads with the product features, and on the right, an alternative that leads with the benefits or the solution that comes as a result of using the product. Side note, these are just fake examples for explanation purposes. So with that said, you can see how we're leading with the benefits though here in the example on the right. It's making your customer the hero or the winner in this equation, because now they can reduce waste and improve food safety if they purchase whole field onions from you. So let's talk about how this customer first messaging strategy translates to your website and the story that's playing out here. I'm sure it's no surprise based on how you like to skim websites and how you look for information quickly, but research reveals that 5.59 seconds is the average amount of time someone spends looking at your site's written content. So if you're a marketer who spent hours poring over your website copy, painstakingly writing and rewriting sentences to share the best version of your story, to only have it glanced at for 6 seconds, well, we feel your pain. We really do, but that's the reality of storytelling in a digital context. Brevity is king, and it tests our skill at saying the most important things in the least amount of words. So some things you can prioritize here. Dominant headlines, these draw the eye. Focus on putting the most important details at the top. Again, keep most of your information above the fold. People do scroll, they do, but you want to hit them with that most important information in case you do lose them after 6 seconds. And then always, always, always give visitors a call to action. If you don't ask them to take an action, oftentimes they will not. So the way you can do all of this is by creating an information hierarchy for your website that will help you map out at a high level what information goes where and in what order. This will help you tell your story. So I'm going to give you some really rough examples of this. This is very, very high level, and it's just using a hypothetical jalapeno grower from the great state of Texas that we just made up. But it'll show you how an information hierarchy could work for your website. You would build out something like this with the messaging. You want to open up with the benefit you offer is the very first thing someone sees. So this is your main headline. This thing is the thing that goes bam. Not only should this be front and center, it's also great when this thing also makes it clear what you do or what you are selling. So in this example, bam, we're going to spice up your day. And then we make sure you're clear that we're growing jalapenos. Spice up your day with sustainably grown Texas jalapenos. Next, add a little sizzle to your spice, pun intended, by telling your visitors how you're going to make their lives better. In this case, this hypothetical grower is really proud and focused on sustainability as a differentiator. It goes back to their audience. They know their audience, and they've determined that sustainability is their uncommon denominator. It's the thing that they're doing really, really well that their audience cares about, but their competitors just aren't doing. So you hit them with a call to action then right off the bat. This initial BAM statement may resonate well enough that they're like, okay, let's do this, and they're ready to click. Sometimes, though, your visitors may want a little more from you first, and this is where people do scroll a little bit more, so let's tell them more. they aren't sold, you can try creating the next few sections of your website to frame the problem and reiterate what's at stake. If they don't act, then call them to action again. So here we reiterate that the shopper who really cares about sustainability may feel a lot like companies tout that they're sustainable all the time, but they can really be all talk. So we're telling them we're not just talk. Then we reiterate that choosing our products means choosing a company with your values in mind. Now that we've told them more, we're calling them to action again. Do your part, which is really going to resonate with the sustainably minded shopper. All right, so here's another example. So perk up if you're one of the B2B or trade focused folks on this call, this will speak to you. So this time we're talking about a hypothetical floral wholesaler that's focused on reaching retail partners. So in this case, their BAM statement at the top about benefits gets right to it. Increase your floral department sales. What retailer isn't going to do a double take when they see that? And then from there, we explain what we offer that makes your life better. And then we hit you with the CTA. So we provide customizable premium quality flowers for a fraction of the cost. Shop now. If they're still scrolling, if they're not sold yet, we're going to reframe, show our retail customer that we understand your problems and what's at stake. So here, your shoppers are tired of seeing the same old supermarket floral arrangement. So stop losing business to the florist around the corner. And then we invite you to explore our arrangement. So you can see the pattern here. It's repetition paired with a clear understanding of who your audience is and what problem you solve for them that can make the process easier over time. Okay. So now that we've learned about how to reframe our messaging to tell a story where our audience is the hero, let's turn our attention to the brand visuals. How do I bring this to life on my website? So these are just a few impactful stats that will set the stage for why visuals matter. But the big takeaway here is that 95% of first impressions are design related. But design is more than just the look and feel. This encompasses the overall user experience as well, which is how a site functions. It's the feeling that someone gets when they are browsing your site. Are they getting a sense of your brand's unique personality, your helpfulness in solving their problems? Is your site clear and easy to navigate? Is it engaging? So we just want to give you a few considerations that you should check against your website to ensure that you're doing all you can to support your brand and tell your story. Brand consistency, we'll talk about each of these in a little bit more detail, but you want to start with a brand guideline or standards that can help lead your process from a design standpoint. So this will really save you time and money in the long run. I'll talk more about that. Clear call to action. I feel like I sound like a broken record here, but you're going to hear me keep repeating this. This is a best practice to encourage people to further engage with you on your website. Then we'll talk a little bit about current design trends here in a minute that you can incorporate to help with visual storytelling. And then use of video. This is one of the best ways to visually tell your story. We'll touch on that. And mobile optimization. This is a must-have, non-negotiable in today's day and age. Many of you probably already are fully mobile optimized, but if you're not, I'll tell you a little bit more about why that's important. All right, so brand consistency. What do I mean by this? These are the brand guidelines that you create. It's one of the most helpful things you can do and invest in prior to starting a website project. So brand guidelines typically include your key messages and your story as well. So this is an all-encompassing document. It's not going to just be about the design. It's going to be about the overall brand and the story. So this is how your story fully comes full circle and comes to life to inform your design decisions. These guidelines will serve as a roadmap to help with the website design. It'll help that go in the right direction. And we found that most of the time, produce companies don't have these established prior to starting a website project. So we highly recommend going through this exercise first if you can. We know that time and resources for you guys typically can be maybe a little bit more tight. Spending time to develop brand guidelines will help you save money in the long term though, because what it does is it directs all additional brand assets going forward from there. So your brand guidelines will not only inform your website, but it's going to inform your packaging. It's going to inform your trade show booth. Your story will go beyond just that website and translate to other things. So some obvious things to consider when you're working on your brand guidelines. You want to ask yourself what your personality is. Is your brand classic, youthful, playful, silly, or modern? You want to get consistent and make sure that that personality is reflected through all your brand touch points, not just your website. Like I said, packaging, even your trade show booth, all your collateral. Some other things to think about: limit the number of fonts. This will help keep your visual storyline clean. And another benefit, it actually helps the page load faster. A lot of people don't know that. Keep that in mind. For your brand colors, make sure that your print materials translate well to on screen. So screen colors are actually completely different than print colors. So having these colors established and picked out will help with that issue. You want to think about your photography style. If you don't have the benefit of a professional photo shoot, you want to try and find photos that have similar lighting tones and filters. You don't want to have too many different things. So you want to keep that consistent aesthetic, like you can kind of see here in this example on this slide. Illustrations and icons is something else you might want to include. If you're doing any type of iconography on your website, most people do have something that's somewhat illustrated. So most stock illustrations and icon designers have a family of similar options, so you won't have to use multiple styles. So I would look into that if you're using iconography and pull from one family. So with that in mind, I've got another question for you guys. How many of you have brand guidelines? Audrey, if you can launch that poll. All right. Give it just another minute. It looks like most of you have voted. Maybe a few more coming in. All right. Great. Okay. Yes, love to see that answer. Most of you keep your brand guides current. This is important for branding consistency. It looks like a few of you have some, but they're not really up to date. And then a lot of you also need these. So this is something we'd love to help with for sure. But you know, like you, we've been there. Sometimes we don't always keep our brand guidelines as up to date as we'd like to. It's definitely a labor of love there to make sure you're keeping that branding consistency going on an ongoing basis. So these do need to be worked on pretty continuously, but great to hear that a lot of you keep these current. All right. Let's talk about that call to action again. You need to tell your visitor what you want them to do. This can take the shape of a number of things, but typically when I say a call to action, it's a button guiding your visitor deeper into your site, like to a blog or a newsletter subscription or a contact us button. Either way, it's a best practice to make this clear and make sure people know exactly what you want them to do, or you risk them leaving your website without taking any action at all. So you can see the stats here that show the importance of call to actions and how much they can boost clicks on your website. You can have multiple call to actions on a page depending on the content you're trying to present. For example, like on your home page at the top, you might ask people to click a learn more about your products button. Further down the page though, you might have your blog subscription call to action. So that's okay to have multiple calls to action on a home page, and we'll show you some examples of this. But there's examples here of different call to actions. Let's schedule a call. That's actually from our website. So keep that in mind for the people that are focused on a trade audience. You might want to have something like that. For a consumer, you want them to find a store that links out to your product locator, or maybe you just want them to watch a video and you've got this arrow here. I actually really love this one with the little arrow, the play button next to watch. That's a really good practice. Adding an arrow or something like that to your CTA can make it a little more engaging. All right, current design trends. These are just some really great ways you can bring your story to life visually that we wanted to touch on. So as you can see here, hopefully you can see the animation on this slide right now, but motion, motion, motion. Right now it's all about animation, and static websites are really becoming a thing of the past. We may call it storytelling, but really when it comes to bringing your story to life, you should show, don't tell. So you show them on your website using clean and clear visuals that grab attention to make a good first impression. We recommend more imagery and less bulky text. So no long detailed paragraphs. When we say less bulky text, that's what we mean, like long paragraphs. Really, you want big, strong headlines and simple, maybe a sentence or two of text. That'll really help grab attention and bring people in. You can also invite participation with something called micro interactions. So these are like tiny moments where a user engages with a design. For example, a hover state, which if you hover over something, maybe something else pops up or it animates, for example, or gamified elements. Maybe I click and drag something. I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. But this just really makes your website more welcoming and human. Parallax scrolling, this has been really popular for a while now. This encourages movement as well. It has it's where when you scroll, the foreground and the background move at different rates. So I'm sure many of you have seen examples of that. It looks really nice and engaging on a web page. And then another thing you can do is called scrollytelling, which is where you reveal elements as you scroll. So like I'm scrolling through a web page and then content might fade in or zoom out or even bounce across the screen. You can do a lot of different effects there, but scrollytelling is another really exciting way to tell your story on your website. So for video, this obviously is not just a passing fad. It's really a powerful way to form relationships with your audience and create an emotional connection. 40% of consumers say they would rather watch a brand video than read the same information. So this is really a great way to tell a longer, more detailed story without adding tons of that blocky text that we talk about. We want to try and stay away from that blocky text. So video is how you can say more without adding tons of copy. So even if someone, as you can see here, only watches your video for under 10 seconds, it's still going to increase brand awareness and purchase intent. So overall, we do recommend keeping your videos shorter. If you've got videos on your website, maybe 30 seconds to a minute really is enough, just knowing that attention spans are so short. We wouldn't recommend putting a big, 5+ minute video on your website. People will probably tune out pretty quickly. But you can see here how important video is to engage your audience further. And then mobile optimization. So this goes back to the good user experience I mentioned before. This ensures someone is able to engage with your story in a positive way. According to Statista, more than half of all website traffic comes from mobile right now. And this is just since 2019. So you can bet it's even higher now with the way people have engaged during the pandemic. A few other reasons to optimize for mobile. You actually get better grades from Google and other search engines if you have a mobile optimized website. A lot of people don't realize that, but it's true. And then it just simply makes your story easier to navigate and faster loading. So you can see an example here of how this website has been optimized to fit on different sized screens. All right, so I'm going to show you guys a couple of examples real quick. And I'll pull this up right here. So this is an example in the industry. This is Duda Farm Fresh Foods, the Dandy brand. And this is their website. Feel free to go to dudafresh.com on your own too, in case any of the movement on the screen might not translate well to Zoom. So you can look at it on your own browser. But I wanted to show you guys this because this really underscores what we're talking about in bringing your story to life on your website and telling a story that's not about you, it's about your audience. So for Duda, they've got their BAM statement, delicious dishes start here. From snack time to dinner time and everything in between, we've got everything you need to create healthy, flavorful meals. So you notice this is about the benefits, not the features of their products. As you scroll, there's some of this subtle movement we talked about. If you can see this on Zoom, you can take a look in your own browser, but there's the celery is moving down into the juicer. And now they're talking about more benefits. You get easy nutrition, hit you with the call to action. Click here to learn more. I'm going to scroll. There's more movement, easy prep. I'm going to give you meal recipes now. So now I'm going to hit you with a different call to action to see if that sparks your interest. And I continue to scroll here. We're going to hit you with snack ideas. And then finally, oops, let me hit hard refresh on that. There we go. Dandy makes it easy. Our full line of grab and go products allows more time for life's moments. So I'm really wrapping it up with the ultimate benefit here and giving you the stakes that we talked about before. The stakes are that you're going to be able to enjoy more of life's moments with these products because we make it easy. More calls to action here. All right, so that's one example. Next, I'm going to show you an example outside of fresh produce. I'm still in food, still in agriculture, but this is happyegg.com. If you want to take a look at this, hopefully you can see the animation on your browser as well here. But I really love this example of storytelling because you've got so much personality here that's coming across in the design and with the messaging here. So again, benefits focus, crack open happy. We're going to start your day in a happy place. That has nothing to do with the features of their products, and that's all about the benefits you're going to receive. And they've got so much fun personality here in the design. You can tell that they're maybe targeting more of a youthful audience here. And as you scroll, there's a lot of movement. I can hold this and open this product and engage with this image. There's a lot of video incorporated. Again, we're still talking about benefits here. We're telling people when you start each day with a happy egg and a smile, it's all blue skies and sunrise yolks from there. So it's really all about how we're going to solve your problems. We're going to make you happy. We're going to start your day with a smile. We're going to help you. Benefits focus here. I'm just going to straight up tell you about the benefits of consuming this particular product, and you can engage with this in a fun, interactive way. There's a CTA there. Again, more opportunities to engage, learn about the nutrition, CTA, find a retailer. All right, so that's that example. Let me see, I'm having trouble getting back to my screen. Hold on one second. Oops. One second, you guys. This is in the way. Let's see. I'm going to hit X. That's what's going to get me there. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So those are those examples, and we're going to turn over the presentation back to Megan, and she's going to talk to you about how we know whether or not our story is connecting with the right audiences. Measuring success.
Great. Thank you so much, Mac. Some marketers really aren't making use of the analytics that are available to determine, the benchmarks and cues that gauge how well a brand story really is resonating with the audiences that are visiting the website on a regular basis. So at DMA, we unofficially measure analytics for our company and our clients on a weekly basis, I'd say. I mean, really, we're nerdy marketers and we enjoy the thrill of seeing growth and percentage change as our marketing happens in the moment. But officially, and we have some clients on the phone, so they're probably like, right. But really, we do. But officially, we report website analytics to both our CEO here at DMA and our clients on a monthly basis. And we do that in a report format that we've learned to build to, quote unquote, tell a story really on its own. So by doing this over time, we're able to identify trends, habits, preferences, and more importantly, opportunities. So hear me on the opportunities. Opportunities are identified when reading between the lines, really, on your marketing analytics, your website analytics specifically. And to us, this is really exciting to discover. Measurements that we have listed here on this slide, like most visited pages, time on page, total clicks, and bounce rate, all tell a marketer, hey, you really hit the nail on the head with that message, or uh-oh, we saw a decline month over month, we need to recalibrate. So hence the opportunity. Either way, the gold in the analytics is the knowledge that we gain about our story, our product, and perhaps most importantly, our customer. These particular measurements indicated here on the slide are not the only markers you could measure to tell if your story is sticking, really. There's so many more. And I do hope you'll invite the conversation a little bit more around analytics when we open up our discussion, which we'll do right after our next poll. So Audrey, if you'll launch that next poll. So based on this presentation, we'd love to know how you currently feel about your website. Feel awesome? You feel okay? Not great? Overwhelmed? Need help? We could always do better. We could always, I mean, that's just we're always striving for better. Okay, votes still coming in. Only about 50% have voted. We'll see if there are a few more. Come on, guys, wake up. Everybody's still out there. No more? Almost 60%. All right. So looks like overall, you guys feel pretty good. You know what you need to work on, and hopefully this has helped. Meanwhile, 32% of you are not feeling awesome. So, you know, that's probably why you're here today. And for both of really from both sides of the spectrum, whether you're feeling awesome or whether you're not feeling so good, there's always that in between that I was talking about. Read between the lines to find the opportunities. And we hope you've been able to do some of that here today. Okay. All right. So, oh my gosh, offers. All right. So before we open up our discussion, I want to just tell you guys that today we've mentioned a lot here, and there are ways that we can help you. We can offer 10% discount off of our website assessments, which is something that we can help you do. Feel free to ask more in the chat, but you know, we can help you do to kind of help you get your arms around where you are from an analytical perspective and ways that you could be improving just based on all the things that Mackenzie's been saying. And then also messaging guides. So really approaching your brand story, that quote unquote brand story that Mackenzie was talking about, because it's super important to have that. We deem these two things, a website assessment and messaging guide, really as essential for your marketing. And if you believe you have work to do, really, or if you feel like you're smooth sailing with your current website and messaging, consider partnering with us just to help you maximize your potential, really tell your story more effectively and get the results you want for your website, which ultimately is more sales and more customer interactions. So if you're interested in maybe talking about it first, seriously, no strings attached. Mackenzie and I are offering our time, which, as you know, is very valuable. It's valuable to you. It's valuable to us to hear your challenges and offer a solution that works for you. So just make it easy. Email us at info@dma-solutions.com and we'll get a call booked.
All right, so with that, we're going to go live, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we are going to turn on our videos.
Yay.
Hi, everyone.
We're like the man behind the curtain. Like
yes, here I am. All right, so we're just going to go into a Q&A now and talk through your questions and your thoughts based on that. So it looks like we've got a couple of questions here. Great question here. How often do you recommend updating your brand guide? What is an example of an addition or a revision? Really good question there, Jennifer. It really, in terms of how often you update it, it probably should just be based on how often your brand is changing. If you do want to make any major changes to the look and feel of your brand, if you're incorporating new colors or fonts, obviously you would want to make an update to it there. And like I said before, your brand guide really shouldn't be only the design. You should also include some messaging in there as well. So your story might change at some point too. You might have a new element to your story or your copy that you want to start calling out. For example, sustainability is something that we've had a lot of our clients are really adding more focus on in their own stories. So that's something that could be updated and added as an addition to your brand guide. So that's an example of some sort of an addition you might add, or if you incorporate any new illustrations. Like for us at DMA, we've recently changed up some of our illustrative elements that we're using. So that calls for an update to our brand guide there. So I wouldn't say it's something that you should update, just arbitrarily based on, it's been a year, we haven't updated this. I think it really needs to be based on the need in terms of how often you should update it.
For sure.
I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts,
No,
Megan or Cliff?
Completely agree. I mean, things change over time. You will do updates over time. So instead of recreating the wheel, I mean, branding is something that should maintain, but you're going to make some upgrades, and you just want to be sure that that's included in your brand guide.
And I think large refresh is where you're like starting from scratch every 7 to 10 years is kind of what the big names like Apple and Nike and McDonald's do. The ones who have that big budget to do that. So to stay fresh for more than 10 years is pretty hard. So to re-look at it overall after a certain amount of years is good. But yeah, the small updates here and there are definitely useful. And think of it, it's for your employees too. So if you have messaging in there, you get a new employee on, they can like know who you are and who they want to tell other people you are. So not just, for people to see, but your employees.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I love seeing here in the chat, it looks like you guys are talking about brand guides a little bit. And thank you, Lori. Great to see you on here. As usual, your comment here about brand guide for the produce moms, this goes a long way in helping you do a better job working with your partners and adapting their voice and priorities. So it's really a helpful tool, not just to inform your website, your marketing. It can help inform your partners. It's a great thing to hand to an influencer partner if you start working with them to help them understand a little bit more about you and the voice you want to get across. So it really has a lot more uses that extend beyond just the obvious, like your website. So great questions there.
Okay, we've got a zinger teed up here for you, Mac.
All right.
For both of us, really.
What's that?
Okay, so here's a question. How do you recommend that I convince my executive/ownership team to understand that our messaging isn't where it needs to be?
That is a toughie for sure, because it's really hard, especially when, I'll just say it, egos are involved, and, the ego behind the messaging being about me and the company story and the way it was founded, wanting that to be the focus. I totally understand the struggle there. And it's something, quite frankly, that we still struggle with working with our clients on a regular basis. And sometimes we don't always get there and get the messaging exactly where we want it to be, but we always are able to find a happy medium. I think that's a good place to start, is figure out what are some small changes and tweaks you can do to your messaging to help give the best of both worlds, and maybe start going down that path. If you can't convince them to completely restructure your homepage to where it's talking about the product benefits completely, they still want to get those points across about, maybe it's, we're a family owned business for this many years, for example. That's more of a feature centric type message or copy that we see all the time in this industry. That's really important to people. They care about elevating their longevity. We do too, as a company that's been in fresh produce for 16, 17 years now. We care about longevity too. It's just, it's more of a statement that can help establish authority, but it's not necessarily a benefit. So I still think it has a place in your story. That's what you can tell your leadership team. This has a place in our story. It's still part of our story. It's just not the thing that we should probably lead with, bam, right at the top of our website copy. It's really not the thing that's going to draw people into us immediately. So great question there.
Good.
Anything to add to that, Megan?
Yes. And in fact, we're getting some feedback just to panelists that was a good question. So yay, good. We've struck a nerve, and that's good. When people ask questions, that's what happens. But I would just say to that, analytics, I was delighted to speak on that today, very little, but still maybe that's something we need to dive deeper into, because analytics are going to be the key to selling anything that you need, really. It's because this is why we need to do this. I A/B tested these two messages. I led with our more about us versus about a benefit. And I saw that the benefit yielded better results. So if we want more clicks, or if we want more engagement with our customers on our website, perhaps we should shift over to this type of thinking. Thank you for the feedback, guys. This is awesome. I'm seeing things pop up. Yes. So use the analytics to help defend your position on updating messaging, really visuals, anything for that matter. Use analytics.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
All right.
All right, let's see.
Any other questions
popping
up?
Okay, here's one. I liked how you positioned how putting an about us statement on our website may not be the best first message for our visitors to see when they arrive to our website. So this is kind of in alignment with what we just talked about, but worth reiterating. Our ownership is very proud of their company's longevity in the fresh produce industry and often want to lead with this type of message. Are you recommending that we do not lead with this type of messaging on our website?
Basically, yes, that's what we're recommending, is that probably shouldn't be the thing that you lead with. That's not the lead. That's not the hook of your story. It really isn't. That's not what your audience probably cares the most about. Is it something that you can mention as a way to establish authority? Sure, but it's not probably the benefit that your audience is looking to take away from you. I know a lot of you on this call mentioned that you're focused on reaching your trade partners with your audience. That's your primary audience. So for you, you really want to focus on how you're solving those partners' problems as your primary message that you put there first and foremost, versus talking about your history or how you were founded or any of that. That's really not what they care about. If they're showing up on your website, the number one thing they want to know from you is, how are you going to solve this problem that I have? Period.
And PS, to Mackenzie's point earlier in the deck, she talked about this could translate over to your trade show graphics, booth graphics. This could translate over to the thing that you're handing out in the booth. Like, it's everything. It's absolutely imperative from your website, just because of numbers, like just sheer numbers. You're going to get more views, more impressions, more eyeballs on your content and your brand on your website, simply because it's online. But when you think about it from a trade marketing perspective, it's a literal interpretation of what we're going to do to benefit you. That's the way to go. And honestly, some of you on the call, on the webinar, what are we on? A call? I don't know. What is this? Zoom. I know that you guys have been doing this. I've seen it firsthand. So I've seen it specifically in trade. It's consumer where we're getting tripped up a little bit, and that it makes sense. It's tricky, right? We don't always want to talk about nutrition. Nutrition is for sure a benefit, but let's talk about other things that people really care about right now. Let's talk about flavor. Let's talk about immunity. Let's talk about those benefits that people are hungry to find solutions for.
Yeah, I think nutrition is a good example of something that all we have to do is tweak the way we're talking about it just a little bit to make it more powerful. So a lot of us might talk about nutrition in a feature-centric way, like our product is high in vitamin C. Tweak it just a little bit and say something like, boost your immunity with oranges. All it takes is just a small little tweak to the way you're talking to your audience about the same thing to really make it feel more actionable. I really like starting messages off like that with a verb. It really makes it more powerful and makes them feel like they're being asked to, take an action or asked to do something, or that they're going to get really like good results from either consuming your product, buying your product, or working with you if you offer a service or something to that extent. But yeah, starting with a verb is a great way to just make a slight tweak to something to make it all the more powerful to your audience.
Awesome. So I'm just curious for folks out there, those of you that answered the poll question, it was the last poll question that I asked, thing that you think that you're doing a killer job, like you've learned today, but you're doing a killer job. Can you just explain, if you can go anonymous, maybe in the Q&A, even, why do you think that is? Is this something that you've already nailed, the messaging, or do you just, have you figured out another way? And it's okay if you have. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So if you'll just put that in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe like your analytics, maybe your website is doing, you feel like you're getting a really great amount of traffic volume on a regular basis and people are staying on your site longer. Bounce rate, that's one of the ways you can tell people are interested, is they're staying on the website for a longer amount of time and clicking through on those call to actions.
Yep. So we'll let y'all, if anybody wants to participate in that, please do. That's, again, nerding out, but it's fun. Okay, one more question. All right. You mentioned your team conducts website assessments, and I know that's super clinical. Like, it sounds, I don't know, it's like something you don't want to have, but it actually is, believe me. Can you explain what that is and what the benefits would be? So to someone who's wanting that, maybe. Okay.
Sure. Website assessments are actually one of my favorite things to work on, believe it or not. I love working on them. So everything that's included in this document that we would ultimately give to you, it's really a comprehensive document that includes, it's somewhat like a SWOT analysis, I guess you could think of it that way, but more detailed than that. You'll get several pages worth of information from us, but we really go into the back end of your website. So we would want back end access and, to your analytics, and also just to look at how the site was built. Now we wouldn't touch anything, promise. But this would help us assess your website a little bit better. And we would figure out for you, based on your analytics, based on that performance, we would also look at the front end and think about your messaging. Is your messaging really doing the things that we talked about that are best practices? Are you using enough calls to action? Is your messaging resonating with people? Are you saying things that might be more lingo that someone might not understand? So we go through all of that. We look at how's this website actually performing on the back end, and we put together a comprehensive document that would tell you, okay, here's from our perspective, here are the strengths of your website, and maybe here are some opportunities for improvement that your website has. And also here's some weaknesses, some things that you really need to fix, or some things that just aren't working well for you. And we can even take it a step further. A lot of times we'll go look at your competitors' websites as a part of the assessment. And that's where we'll tell you maybe some competitive threats you need to think about. Like, this is your website and you're lacking these things, but your competitor is doing these things. So you really need to think about that. Or, here's something that we found that your competitor's not doing. So we talked about that uncommon denominator, the thing that your competitor's not doing that really gives you a huge opportunity. We think you should bring this out more on your website. Your competitors are completely focused on sustainability and growing stories, but for you, maybe you talk about nutrition, like no one's talking about nutrition in detail. That could be an open space for you. So all of those things can be brought out through website assessment, and each one is really it's a lot of time goes in care goes into building this out for you specifically, so that it's tailor-made for your needs and your goals too. Cliff, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that from how you contribute to the website assessments in terms of what you look at on the back end of the website from a development standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of depends on, are we doing the assessment to completely rebuild your website? Or are we looking at what you currently have and helping you fix what you currently have? If it's fixing what you currently have, we'll go in and look at, if you're in WordPress, most likely most of you are, we'll check out number of plugins. Is the website being up to date with the WordPress core and the plugins? Is there going to be security issues? A WordPress website's great, but if you don't upgrade it and update it frequently, you're likely to be possibly hacked. And we've seen that before. But there's simple things you can do to keep it updated. And so we kind of look at all the pieces that are making the website work, and what can be optimized. What can we do to speed up the website? When you're running, 50 different plugins on your website, that means you're loading hundreds of scripts that really slow down your website. And are you using all these scripts on all these pages? So a lot of just, cleaning all that up, and just also some other things, looking at your image sizes and your video sizes. If you're showing a video, is it 30 megs and it takes a user 10 minutes to look at the video? We want to fix that. Images, if they're too large for the screen, size-wise, we can, optimize things like that. So a lot of those little nitpicky things on the back end really help your rankings, because your page loads faster, and just the overall experience for the user when they visit your site.
Yeah, for sure. That's how all of this ties back into story. You might be thinking, what does all this back end stuff have to do with really my story? At the end of the day, like Cliff said, it's the overall user experience is part of your story. So that website might be someone's first impression of your company. So they're landing on your website, and the experience that they get contributes to how they're interacting with your story. So that's why all of those things are really important, and it does all come together and play a role there. Okay.
No more questions.
No more questions.
2 o'clock on the nose.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Love all the questions and the banter in the chat. I hope this was really helpful. And yeah, please feel free to reach out to us. If you just have more questions you want to ask them on the side, we're happy to help chat with you and consult with you a little bit more about the things that you're doing that you might want a little bit more clarity on. And we'd love to help if you find yourself in a position to where you want to learn a little bit more about specific things you should be doing. We can help you. So
Yes.
great. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you all for being amazing attendees today. I love the banter in the chat. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to bring this to an end for now. But remember, we've got more coming up. So make sure you take a look at our website and look at those upcoming webinars and register for those. We'll see you all soon. Thank you.